Sportageous. Sport gets smarter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Sportageous cast, where we bring you insights into the sporting world straight from athletes, sports biz, sports professionals, and more. You might have heard we've rebranded and brought together the podcast and videocast into one single platform. You can now watch and or listen to each of our amazing guests. And without further ado, our guest today is Greg Sturge, the Director of Strategy at GameDay, a stack sports company that delivers market-leading SaaS sports management technology platforms, including membership management, competition and league management, data insights and reporting, and much, much more. Greg has been involved in various sports organizations over the past few years, including Sport England, Snowsport England, and much more. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Zushan. Great to be here.
Look, I said a whole lot of complicated stuff in that introduction, so I'm hoping we can break that down a little bit and get to hear from you what GameDay is all about. But before we sort of get into that, Greg, can you tell me a little bit about how long you've been involved with GameDay and Stack Sports and your own personal story within the sporting world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been involved with GameDay for about a year and a half now. But to take you back to the start, I started out at British universities and colleges sports, mainly working in sort of frontline event delivery, sport development projects, introducing new sporting initiatives. Also did some work in international sporting events, attended 2 World University Games with the Great British team. So very much at the sharp end of sport delivery. I then moved into Sport England, where I was looking at national governing bodies and funding schemes, and lining up delivery with government objectives and making sure there was return on investment and those kind of things. And then a year and a half ago, nearly 2 years ago, my partner and I moved out to Australia, down to Melbourne, and I was put in touch with what was then called SportsTech, now known as GameDay. And started working for them as a consultant for about 6 months or so. And then when we returned to the UK, they asked me to stay on and start heading up the new or developing EMEA team as the new director of strategy. So that sort of had a whole journey, I guess, through the sort of front end to the sort of sports technology side. I'm also now currently on the board of Snowsport England, where my main remit is around diversity and inclusion, and how we increase that within the sport. And that's something I'm very passionate about as well.
Yeah, look, that's really interesting, Greg, because, you talk about how you were sort of on that front end working more with governing bodies and universities, and now you're in the sports tech world. So what's that transition been like? You go into a new country where, of course, we're based, go into this new side of the sporting world that you haven't really been in prior. What has that transition been like for you?
It's definitely been an education on the technical side. I'm not probably the most tech savvy person. I'll be the first to admit that. So that's been a real education to sort of understand the platforms. But what it does mean is that I've got a real understanding and sense for what sporting organizations need at that front end, and what is going to make things better for them, and what's going to make the administration of their events and their leagues and things easier. And I think that really allows me to connect the dots in the middle, I guess, so understanding our technical capabilities and then how that translates into some very real advantages for those delivering sport at that front end. So I think from that end, it's been a really good and really interesting transition to understand that pathway.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I mean, coming into that space, having that background prior it totally makes sense. So look, I think that's fantastic, but I want to sort of get into, obviously we're talking about what you've been doing, but when it comes to GameDay, for some of the people who follow us at Sportageous, they would have seen you at our squash summit, where of course you were our gold sponsors. Thank you very much for that again. That went really, really well. But let's get into it. It's all over. It's all to you. What is that? What is GameDay? give us the lowdown, essentially.
Yeah, great. So as you said in your very kind introduction, the long and short of it is we're the market-leading SaaS platform delivering sports management technologies across the APAC and EMEA markets. And that means we're delivering all the functions that you need to administer and deliver sport in an effective way. We work across a real breadth of the sporting sector, everything from international and national governing bodies right down to grassroots clubs, and everything from sort of professional teams to charitable foundations to major event organizations to local leagues. So it's a real sort of all-encompassing. Our solutions are very tailorable to each of those tiers, I guess, of the sporting sector. So at its core, it is a couple of those things you mentioned. So membership management, competition and league management, events and ticketing. And then we also have digital sporting club websites and an e-commerce and an auction platform as well. So really looking to create the spine of a sport and give them all the tools they need to administer really effectively. But we're also really focused on integrating advanced API into everything that we do, so that we can link in with other relevant sporting technologies to deliver a whole sports experience. We know we're not the experts in everything, but we know what we do very well, and we use that to then build out something that works for a sport to deliver in the most effective way. Quick summary of some of our clients. We're really well established in Australia and New Zealand, working with the likes of Basketball Australia and New Zealand. We work with all 18 AFL clubs. We work with the Football Federation Australia. We've also started looking into Asia, so we're currently working with Hong Kong Rugby Football Union. And then over this side of the world in Europe, we're working with people like the International Basketball Federation, the Rugby Football League, Jane Tomlinson's Run for All, Basketball Ireland, the UEFA Foundation. So really eclectic mix, and I guess that's just a selection of those at the top end. But like I say, we go right down to the local and grassroots club as well, with tailored pricing depending on who we're talking to and what we're trying to deliver.
Yeah, wow. Look, that's a wide array of things that you have available and a whole range of different organizations globally. And I've obviously, after we got in touch initially, I had a look through everything that you guys do, and it's absolutely fantastic, which is why I thought, it'd be of great value to have you on the show and talk to you a little bit. And one of the things that, I personally wanted to hear about as well was the next gen event platform that you have available at the moment. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's all about, essentially?
Absolutely. It's something we're really proud of, our GameDay events platform. We relaunched it sort of last year in 2020, whole new system and build that we've created in-house. I guess it has everything you'd expect an event platform to have in terms of being able to have an individual login, an individual membership number, a ability to purchase a ticket. But then it's when you sort of get into the more detailed elements that we really think we've got something that stands out. So we've integrated some really advanced insights dashboards. So you as the manager of the event can really get into your data and understand who's attending your event and how they're consuming your product. Luckily, just around the start of quite deliberately around the start of the COVID pandemic, we released a new feature where the app will create a ticket on your phone, and you can scan into events using your phone. So it's completely hands-free, very sort of safety and health conscious, and makes it a lot easier for people on the go to be able to not worry about trying to find a printer somewhere and print something out. So that's a really cool feature that we're very proud of. We've released a whole load of payment options, and this is across our platform. So we now have OpenPay, our buy now, pay smarter provider, so you can stagger your payments out over a few months. We've integrated Google and Apple Pay, as well as alongside your normal standard payment options and payment gateways. And like I say, it's all built on an open API infrastructure. So we are looking at how we can use that to integrate with other platforms, other sports, other providers, sports-specific technologies to deliver a whole sports experience. And we're releasing more functionality all the time. We are very proud of it, and we are actively engaging our partners and those in the sector to help us shape what's going to be the next big feature, what's the next big thing that you'd like to see as part of that platform. So, and I think that's quite unique for the sector in that we're sort of actively engaging those we're trying to reach in that way and helping them shape our product. I guess finally, the platform itself is free for free events. At its core, the core platform, you can sign up on our website. It's no cost to start getting event membership and event the platform up and running. And then from there, we obviously have tiered options moving up, but we operate a really competitive rate, much better than some of the big players in the market, like your Eventbrites and things like that. So yeah, really proud of the platform. I'm very happy to speak to anyone about it if they're interested.
Yeah, well, for everyone watching or listening, be sure to check out all of the GameDay social media links and also their website, which will be in the description or caption wherever you are watching or listening. So be sure you go there and get in touch with Greg or the team through those platforms so that you can find out a little bit more. Greg, just following up on that, I guess, what are some of the integrations that you have available at the moment?
We have a really long list of partners that we already work with.
Yeah.
So some of the key ones to shout out would be Rosterify, the volunteer management platform, Geo Snapshots, the event photography platform, eCal, who link your calendars across your events so you can get updates directly to your phone. Someone like Tidy HQ, who helps us with sort of the club management side of things. We integrate with them. DMC Sport, the kit provider. So we work with a number of people, but those are sort of the partnerships that we have directly with those sports that are there all the time. For some, we also then look at how we directly work with other organizations. So the International Bowling Federation, for example, we're working with a number of other sporting technologies to create something that's really built for their sports and that's going to allow them to deliver across the world. So yeah, working on two tiers there, I guess.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned Rosterify because that was one of the first companies that we had on when we were still the Sport Ages podcast. We didn't have a video cast over a year ago now, I would say. And obviously they've come really, really far since then and even prior. So it's fantastic to see that, you guys are doing some work with them as well.
Yeah. We've got a really good relationship with them. And the other one I should also shout out is eTrainU, who the online learning provider. And we've got a really fantastic work with them where we've created virtual training modules about our systems using eTrainU. So anyone that signs up to our system, there's a whole virtual training platform about how to use it and get the most out of it. So yeah, just shout out to them as well because they're another really important partner of ours.
Yeah, I think like personally from having used different sort of softwares like your own in the past, I think that can often be one of the most challenging things, being able to understand that and sort of how to go about things. And, when we've had events of our own, a lot of the feedback that we've received from guests has been, I wish I knew how to do this, not at the last hour, but within the first 20 minutes so that I could progress from there. So I think that's absolutely fantastic, Greg. And look, just following on from that very, very quickly, you mentioned how, you moved from rebranded from SportsTG to GameDay. What was the reason behind the rebrand? Why did you decide to go this way? I mean, I personally love the new design and the logo, but I'd love to sort of hear it from you.
Yeah, of course. And ultimately, SportsTG, as it was, had evolved over about 15 years down in the Australian market. And as is often the nature in the tech sphere, that had become to incorporate a number of different technologies, which each had their own names, their own brands, all the rest of it. And we thought it was time to bring all those brands and all those identities together under one roof and one brand, and also to really sort of unify us within that wider Stack Sports family as well. Stack Sports is a major American conglomerate. There's about 35 different sports technologies within the Stack brand. And we really wanted to make sure that our brand within that wider brand was really, really clear as well. So yeah, aligned it all. We've renamed some of our platforms, so now it all sits under GameDay. And it just gave us a really good chance to refresh and renew, particularly as we look to push into those new markets, as we're looking to expand in Europe and Asia in particular. It was really good to make sure everything was aligned to give us that sort of unified brand to push out across the sector.
Yeah, look, I mean, even, when I think of GameDay, you guys being an event platform, that instantly hits me, Okay, it's GameDay, right? Let's get onto it. We've got things to do. All of that's ready to go, as compared to, obviously you've evolved and this is where you are at this moment, but GameDay really sort of strikes out for me. So I think fantastic, well thought out name, great work. And moving from that, Greg, you touched a little bit on earlier, I believe, sort of all the way from professional organizations to the grassroots level. So I wanted to sort of ask you in that regard, what are some of the benefits for organizations throughout, from the bottom right to the top and vice versa, when using GameDay? And why do you think, let's say grassroots organizations also have value in using your softwares and the different technologies that you provide?
Yeah, of course. Fundamentally, I really believe, having used a number of platforms over the last 10 years working in the industry, that the functionality that GameDay provides is really, really advanced and really genuinely saves time administering your sport. You spoke a little bit a minute ago about that sort of difficulty when you transition onto a new system, and I certainly see that as part of my role, is to understand what those pain points are going to be and help an organization move across. But ultimately, the functionality of the platform means it's so easy to pick up and start using and start transacting on, that it's really not that much of a challenge, and it's very intuitive and easy to come on board with the system. We've done some case studies with some of our partners where we're saving them hundreds, if not thousands, of hours of administration time over the course of a year because of the improvements that the system makes by coming onto GameDay. I think the second area is our commercials. We have a very, very competitive offer when it comes to our pricing, and we also have some really ingenious models where we help the sport pay for itself. So we can lower the cost to the organization directly because we're making up that in other areas, and that's all designed to really help the club or the organization or the NUB maximize its own revenue generation, particularly in the environment we're in now, where a lot of organizations are trying to recover from the global pandemic. It's more important than ever that people are getting their membership on time, they're getting those payments in, they're looking at other revenue streams, they're looking at other events, they're looking at selling merchandise, whatever it is, and we can provide a really integrated solution for that at a very reasonable price to the organization. That means they can really maximize their revenue generation and make sure they can deliver their activity. The other thing I really wanted to mention was the new functionality that we're releasing all the time. We have a fantastic initiative called GameDay Community that a couple of my colleagues here in the European region have set up, and it's really allowing us to engage directly with people that want to know more about our system and want to help us shape the system so that we're developing the right new additions to the platform that are really going to make a difference to those sporting organizations. So do check out GameDay Community as well. It's a really great way to get involved in what we're doing, and we're very open about what our development pathway is, our roadmap, and our roadmap is out there publicly for people to see and access and understand and comment on. So that's really good. And we're growing. We are fast growing in the set. We're very well established, like I say, in the APAC market already, but certainly in the European market, we're growing. We've got a growing support team over here. So we're really proud to have that sort of global coverage of support. So wherever you are in the world, we're getting quick answers and making sure your platform's running smoothly. Yeah,
look, I mean, what I find really interesting about that, and it actually gets me thinking, you have this product well established on this side of the world. You're leading the front on growing it there in a market that, there are obviously a lot of competitors. Here's a question to you, Greg. What has been or perhaps what have been your biggest challenges when, with sort of growing GameDay? As you said, it's been growing. There's a whole range of things that you do. So for somebody who, like my own engagement or associations with sports organizations, particularly at a very grassroots level, is that they often don't understand a lot of this stuff. And I could just think from the top of my head, if somebody in that space gets all of this information at once, they're going to be left confused. So what are some of the challenges for you in sort of growing this and dealing with some of your clients and customers?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that is definitely one of the challenges. We do so much that it's making sure we're putting the right opportunities in front of the right people. And whilst also not limiting ourselves, because it's amazing the number of conversations you have where you might start out talking about primarily our events module, for example, and by the end of it, you're discussing an auctions platform. And it's, so you're sort of trying to put the information out there in a way that allows a potential partner to explore it fully and understand everything that we do, whilst not overwhelming them with the amount that we can do, and making sure they get what they need out of the platform. So I definitely think that's been one of our main, not barriers, but challenges, is to make sure we're translating that in the right way. I think the rebrand is really going to help with that. I think there was definitely, because of those sort of legacy systems and legacy names, now having that single unified brand that we can push out is also really, really going to help. And I guess the biggest thing for us in this EMEA market is awareness and putting ourselves in front of the right people, and making sure we're getting in front of the right decision makers to bring new partners on. And that's where it's great to have some really major influential partners on already, people like the RFL and the IBF, Run for All, in different spheres, that give us some real advocates for what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, look, fantastic, Greg. And look, just before we conclude, I just wanted to ask you, what do you have in store for the future? We've talked about, all the amazing things that you're doing at the moment, but what comes next? Where does, Stack Sports as a whole aim to see GameDay in 5 years, and where do you sort of aim to see it within that region in the coming future?
It's all about growth for us. It's all about, we have a foothold over this side of the world, but certainly my job, as I see it, is to really grow us to be a major player in not just the UK, but across Europe. And in time, we want to start looking at in the Middle East and Africa as well, as we build out more functionality, more language capabilities, those kind of things. And I know on the APAC side of the world, very similar, looking at expanding into those sort of Asian markets, up into Hong Kong and places like that, whilst really solidifying and maintaining their place as a dominant player in the sports technology space down there.
Well, look, Greg, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And once again, for everyone watching or listening, be sure to check out GameDay on their socials. It'll be in the caption or description below, wherever you are tuning in from. If you want to reach out to Greg to sort of learn a bit more about GameDay and perhaps bring it aboard whichever organization you work for, you can find him on LinkedIn. Greg, thank you so much once again. It's been a pleasure, mate. And from our end, I definitely look forward to chatting to you about some of the solutions that you have on offer for the next event that we'll be doing at SportAgeous.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Zushan. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed speaking with you.